يا أيها الناس قد جاءكم برهان من ربكم وأنزلنا إليكم نورا مبينا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. This lesson is aimed towards those students who have studied the rules of Madd. The focus of this lesson is in comparing Madd Badl with Shabeeh البدل. Some aspects of the lesson will look at the root radical letters, which will benefit the advanced students in understanding the wazn, i.e. the patterns of the words of Madd Badl. So there are two main types of classification for Madd. Every single Madd will either be a type of Madd Far'i or a type of Madd Tabi'i. So to see where Madd Badl fits in, we can see that the reason of the Madd for Madd Badl is hamzah. So therefore Madd Badl is a type of Madd Far'i. At the first instance, this Madd can be confused with Madd Tabi'i because the Madd letter does not have a Madd sign on it, and also its duration for Hafs min Tariq Shatibiya is 2 harakat, which is the same as Madd Tabi'i. To identify this as Madd Badl, we need to remember that in the words of Madd Badl, the hamzah comes first and the Madd letter comes after the hamzah, and this is the reason of the Madd is due to the hamzah, and this is how we recognize that we have Madd Badl and not Madd Tabi'i. So let's look at a full definition of Madd al-Badl. The linguistic definition of Madd al-Badl is the exchange Madd. It's a type of Madd al-Far'i, and the hukum is its jaiz 2 harakat. And the reason of Madd is hamzah. The hamzah comes before the Madd letter. A Madd letter has been exchanged from a hamzah, and this is why it's called the exchange Madd, Madd Badl. The sign of Madd is not found above any of the Madd letters, and the Madd can be present in wasl and waqaf and in starting. And this can be seen in detail on page 42 of Tajweed QA Part 1. So let's look at some examples. So here in the example utitum, the hamzah comes before the Madd letter waw madiyya, and in azara the hamzah comes before the Madd letter alif, and in li'ilafi the hamzah comes before the Madd letter ya. So in all three places the hukum is 2 harakat. So where has the exchange come from? So if we look at the following examples, if we look at the word amana, which means believed, so the origin was hamzah with fatha and the second hamzah with the sukoon. And the next example, udhina. So if we look at the origin of the word, the first hamzah with a dhamma, the second hamzah with sukoon, and that's why we have udhina. And if we look at the word imanan, at the origin, the first hamzah was with kasra and the second hamzah was with sukoon, and that's where we have imanan. So in all three examples, a hamzah has been exchanged into a Madd letter. So the reason why we have alif here is because the first hamzah has a fatha, so the sister of fatha is alif, which is why the second hamzah has changed to alif. And the reason why we have waw mad here is because the first hamzah carried a dhamma and the sister letter of dhamma is waw madiyya, which is why we have udhina, we have the waw madiyya. And in the third example, the reason why the hamzah has been exchanged into a ya madiyya is because the hamzah carried a kasra, and for that reason the second hamzah has been exchanged into a ya mad. So all the words of Madd Badl have one hamzah in the roots. To understand where the second hamzah has come from, we need to look at the wazn, i.e. the pattern of the word. Most Arabic words are derived from a 3-letter root, and each root can be transformed into one of the 10 main word forms, which are classified as the wazn of a word in Arabic. The 10 main word forms can be seen on page 85 of my book Tajweed QA Part 2. So the Madd Badl words are found on the pattern where hamzah is added, as in form 4, af'ala. So in form 4, this example is built on form 1 of the word by adding a hamzah at the beginning of the word and putting a sukoon over the first letter in the root, so the first radical of the root, which in this case was already hamzah. So that's where the two hamzahs come from. So the root of amana is hamzah, mim and noon. So this is the past tense verb found on pattern 4, af'ala. So when hamzah is prefixed to the root, the second hamzah takes a sukoon, and according to the wazn, and therefore, due to the meeting of two hamzahs, the second hamzah is changed to alif mad, which corresponds to the fatha on the first hamzah. In the next example, the same thing has happened. In udhina, the root is hamzah dhal noon. So when the verb is put onto form 4, an extra hamzah is added to the prefix to the word, and the original hamzah from the root takes a sukoon. And as a result of the meeting of two hamzahs, the second hamzah is changed to a mad letter corresponding to the dhamma on the first hamzah, which makes it into waw madiyya. And in the next example, this is a verbal noun, imanan. So if we look at the root, again the root is hamzah mim noon, the same as the root in amana, which was a past tense verb, and here we have a masdar, a verbal noun. So when the verbal noun is put onto pattern 4, an extra hamzah is prefixed, and the second letter in the root, which is hamzah, takes a sukoon, and as a result we have the meeting of two sukoons in one word, and therefore the second hamzah is exchanged to a yamad. So let's now define Madd Shabeeh bil Badl. So Shabeeh means similar to or looks like. There has been no exchange of a hamzah, and this mad looks like Madd Badl, therefore it takes all the rulings of Madd Badl. So it's a type of Madd Badl. You can say it's a type of Madd Badl. It's a type of Madd Far'i, and it's lengthened for 2 harakat, and it's jaiz. So the reason why Madd Badl is jaiz is because other recitations lengthen it more than 2 harakat. And the mad and the hamzah are generally not found at the beginning of a word, but there are some examples which will be given further on. So if we look at the first example, ja'uha. So this is a past tense verb. There's a hamzah as a third radical in the roots. The root letters are jim, ya, hamzah, but the word didn't contain 2 hamzahs, therefore there has been no exchange of a hamzah into a mad letter. In the next example, mubarra'una. So this is a masculine noun on the pattern 2 of fa'ala. The last radical also contained hamzah in the root letters being ba, ra, hamzah, but there has been no exchange as there weren't 2 hamzahs in the word, therefore there has been no exchange of hamzah into a mad letter. In the next example, ma'abin is a masculine noun. The root has hamzah as the first radical, the root letters being hamzah, waw, ba, but there weren't 2 hamzahs in the root, therefore there has been no exchange of a hamzah into a mad letter. In the next example, al-dham'anu. So this is a masculine noun. The root letters again, dha, mim, hamzah. Hamzah is in the root, but there has been no exchange of hamzah into a mad letter. So the word Israel is a proper noun, and again there has been no exchange of a hamzah into a mad letter here, so there weren't 2 hamzahs for there to be an exchange. In the next example, ba'isim is a noun, with hamzah as a second radical in the roots, the root letters being ba, hamzah, sin, and again there has been no exchange. So previously we said that Madd Shabeeh al-Badl is generally not found at the beginning of a word. There are some cases where it is found at the beginning of a word, in a few places only. So examples of the hamzah and the mad at the beginning, and these are all examples of Madd Shabeeh al-Badl, is the word ayah. So here in the word ayah, it's a feminine noun and the root is hamzah, ya. But there weren't two hamzahs in the root, so there has been no exchange. So therefore it's classified as Shabeeh al-Badl and not Madd Badl. There has been no exchange here. And Shabeeh al-Badl here is found at the beginning of the word. In the next example, the word uhiya. So this is a past tense verb found on pattern 4, which is af'ala. But the hamzah that's been attached, hamzah has been attached here to the verb form on pattern 4, but the root doesn't contain a hamzah. The root letters are waw, ha, ya. Therefore, there's been no exchange of a hamzah because there weren't two hamzahs in the root. So it's the same here. It's just Madd Shabeeh al-Badl where there has been no exchange of a hamzah. And in the third example, Ufi is a present tense verb, again on pattern 4, where the hamzah has been prefixed to the verb, but the original root did not contain a hamzah. The root letters are waw, fa, ya. So the root letters on pattern 4 do not contain two hamzahs, therefore there has been no exchange, therefore it's classed as Shabeeh al-Badl. So now that we've looked at a definition of Madd Badl and Shabeeh al-Badl, we can compare the two. Okay, we can compare Madd Badl with Shabeeh al-Badl. And this is a common exam question which is often asked in Tajweed exams for those students who have covered the rules of Madud. So the language definition of Madd Badl is the exchange mad, and Shabeeh al-Badl is the exchange mad lookalike. In Madd al-Badl there's been abdal of a hamzah into a mad letter, and in Shabeeh al-Badl there hasn't been an exchange of hamzah into a mad letter. In Madd al-Badl, in most examples, the hamzah is found at the beginning of a word. The hamzah is found at the beginning of the word. And in Shabeeh al-Badl, in most examples, the hamzah is not found at the beginning of the word in general. And in Madd al-Badl, the hamzah is the first radical of the root. And in Shabeeh al-Badl, hamzah is not always in the root. So you can have a word of Shabeeh al-Badl where the hamzah is in the roots, or it cannot be in the roots. So let's practice using some examples from the Quran. So in this first example, we need to find the mad in this word in wasl and in starting. So in continuation, alladhi tumina, we need to identify if there is any mad, and in starting from this word, how would we start from this word? Because as you can see, we have two hamzahs in one word, and there's a dislike of two hamzahs together, so something needs to happen here in order to start from this word. So what do we do? So in this word we have Madd Badl in starting only, so it's pronounced as utumina. So we have the meeting of hamzat al-wasl with hamzat al-qata' in a verb, and as there is a dislike of the meeting of two hamzahs together, the first hamzah takes a dhamma and the second hamzah is changed to waw mad, which corresponds to the dhamma on the first hamzah, and as a result of this change we have Madd Badl in starting only, and starting from here would only be in a testing situation. So this is an example of Madd Badl in starting only. Other examples of Madd Badl in ibtida include qalu'tu. So in starting we would say itu. So here we would start with kasra because the dhamma on the third letter is not original, so therefore we start with kasra, and the second hamzah would take would change to a yamad, itu. In this example, walil ardi tiya, the first hamza will take kasra, and the ya will therefore change to ya. The hamza will therefore change to ya madiyya, and as a result we start with itina, and as a result we have Madd Badl in starting only. In this example, yaqulu dhalli, so in starting the hamza takes kasra, and the second hamza as a result changes to ya mad, and in starting we say idhalli, idhan. Okay, so as a result we have Madd Badl in starting. So in this example, we need to identify which mad we have here. So this is Madd Shabeeh bil Badl in wasl. In continuation, we can do 2 harakat, and in stopping, due to added sukoon on the scene, we have Madd Badl added li sukoon, which can be lengthened to 4 or 6 harakat. The next example, waba'u. So we can see in this word there are 2 mad letters. We have a alif and we have a waw madiyya. So we need to identify the mad that belongs to each of the mad letters. So what do we have here? On the alif we have mad muttasil wajib in wasl and waqaf, and on the waw madiyya we have Madd Shabeeh bil Badl in wasl and waqaf. So in these 2 examples, in waba'u and la ya'usun, there has been no exchange of hamzas, so therefore it's called Shabeeh bil Badl. So here we can see that we have again waja'u abahum. We have 2 mad letters in this word. We have an alif mad and we have a waw mad. So which mad do we have in wasl and waqaf? On the alif we have mad muttasil wajib in wasl and waqaf, 4 or 5 harakat. On the waw madiyya we have mad munfasil haqiqi in wasl, and in stopping we have Madd Shabeeh bil Badl. So the reason of the munfasil is because the mad letter and the hamza are separated. They're in 2 separate words, and if we stop on waja'u, then we're no longer pronouncing the hamza, so therefore the mad will be Madd Badl, and the mad is Shabeeh bil Badl because there has been no exchange. So in continuation, both letters have a mad sign. So both letters are lengthened 4 or 5 on the alif and 4 or 5 on the waw, and in stopping on the waw it's 2 harakat Madd Badl, Madd Shabeeh bil Badl. Here in وَيُطَافُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِآنِيَةٍ, which mad do we have here in بِآنِيَةٍ? So بِآنِيَةٍ is a collective noun meaning vessels, and if we look to the root letter, we can see there is a hamza in the root, but it's not on a pattern where an extra hamza has been added. So therefore we can say it's Shabeeh bil Badl, where there has been no exchange of a hamza. So this is Shabeeh bil Badl in wasl and waqaf. Here وَإِيتَاءَ الزَّكَاةِ. So here we have 2 mad letters. We have a ya mad and an alif. So we need to identify which mad we have in this word in wasl and waqaf. On the ya mad, we can see that the ya before the ya is a hamza, so therefore we know it's Madd Badl. And if we look to the root, we can find it's on the pattern where an extra hamza has been added, and the root also has a hamza, so therefore it's Madd Badl in wasl and waqaf, and there has been an exchange of a hamza into a ya mad, into a mad letter. On the alif we have mad muttasil in wasl, and because it's a muttasil ended in hamza, in waqaf we have mad muttasil added li sukoon, which can be lengthened 4, 5 or 6 harakat. So here in bil ghuduwi wal asali, which mad do we have on this hamza at the beginning of the word? The word al-asali is a plural noun. There is a hamza in the roots, but it's not in a pattern where a hamza is added. Therefore, we can say it's Madd Shabeeh bil Badl in wasl and waqaf. In the next examples, we can see that in both words we have an alif with a mad sign on, du'a'an wa nida'an. So in both words, we need to identify which mad we have in stopping and starting. And a point to note is that whenever we stop on a fatha tanween, there's something that we need to do in waqaf. So on both alifs, we have mad muttasil in wasl and waqaf, on du'aan and wanidaan. And when we stop on a fatha tanween, we have the noon of tanween in both places is substituted for an alif. So when this change happens, as a result, we have Madd Badl as a result of iwad. So you can see here that the hamzah is followed by a mad letter, and this mad letter has been changed from the noon of tanween. So we read it as du'a. So we have Madd Badl in stopping only, and the same here, wanida. Again, we have Madd Badl in stopping. So the Madd Badl in both of these examples is as a result of iwad, meaning it's a result of the tanween, the noon of tanween, being changed into alif due to waqaf. So which mad do we have in this example? فَمَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ. Utiya. So we can see there's a waw mad here. So this is Madd Badl in wasl and waqaf. So if we look to the root, we can find a hamzah in the root. We can also find that it's on the pattern where a hamzah has been added, prefixed to the word. So we have two hamzahs in the word in the root. So therefore, we can say there has been an exchange here, and we can call it the Madd Badl in wasl and waqaf on utiya. A beginner student of Tajweed learning the Madud rules would not necessarily be expected to identify if a mad was a true badal or a shabeeh bil badal. They should be able to give an example of each and give a definition of each of them. Whereas an advanced student, on the other hand, would be expected to have some knowledge of Arabic grammar, and therefore may well be asked to identify if a mad in the word is a true badal or a shabeeh bil badal. So in general, a true badal is only when the hamzah is found at the beginning of a word, such as amanu, and a shabeeh bil badal is generally when the hamzah is found at the end of a word, such as ra'ufun. However, there are a few examples where the hamzah of shabeeh bil badal is found at the beginning also, as in asali and ayatan and uhiya. So how would an advanced student of Tajweed be able to recognize if a word was Madd Badl or if a word was a shabeeh bil badal? So the following two websites are very useful sources to find this information out. So we have corpusquran.com and we have Ba'ath al-Quran, this one. So if a student wanted to find out if the word here, utiya, is a true badal or a shabeeh bil badal, so first of all we go to Corpus Quran. We can see here that it's a fi'al madi, so it's a past tense verb, and it's on form 4, which means that a hamzah has been prefixed to the verb, and this, we can also see that the root has a hamzah in it, so therefore we know there are two hamzahs next to each other in the root, which is on form 4. So therefore we know that this is a true badal, where an exchange has happened. And if we go to Al-Ba'ath al-Quran, we can also see here that utiya is a fi'l madi, and it's on, we can see the pattern is on af'ala. So again here, we can use these two resources to see that this is a true badal where an exchange has happened. So now we want to see the word bi'aniyatin and see whether this is a badal, a true badal, or a shabeeh bil badal. So again, the same thing, we will go to corpus and we will see that this the word has a hamzah in the root, but it's not on a form where a hamzah has been added. Therefore, we can say that there's been no exchange because there's no meeting of two hamzahs. And if we go to Ba'ath al-Quran, we can see here as well that the root has a hamzah in it, but it's not on a form where a hamzah has been added. So we can see that this is a shabeeh bil badal, it's a badal lookalike. So let's summarize what we looked at today. We gave a definition of Madd Badl. So Madd Badl is the exchange mad, which is a type of Madd al-Far'i. Madd Badl is classified as jaiz because some recitations, such as the riwayah of Warsh from Nafi', allow 3 ways on the mad. So Warsh allows qasr, i.e. 2 harakat, tawassut, i.e. 4 harakat, and tul, i.e. 6 harakat. Madd Badl is where the hamzah has been exchanged due to the dislike of 2 adjacent hamzahs in one word. The first hamzah being mutaharrik and the second hamzah being sakina. To understand where the second hamzah comes from, we looked at the wazn of the word, i.e. the pattern, where the hamzah is prefixed to the word and the second letter, i.e. the second hamzah, takes a sukoon. The second hamzah is exchanged to a mad letter matching the haraka on the first hamzah. So both Madd Badl and Shabeeh bil Badl are always found in one word. So the hamzah and the mad are always found in one word. We looked at the definition of Shabeeh bil Badl. This is where there has been no exchange of a hamzah and the word looks like a Madd Badl, which is why it follows the rules of Madd Badl. We looked at the words where 2 hamzahs can be seen in one word, i.e. the first one being hamzah al-wasl and the second one being hamzah al-qata' in verbs. And in these words, the second hamzah is exchanged to a letter of mad in starting only. So in those examples of the hamzah al-wasl meeting hamzah al-qata' in verbs, we have Madd Badl in starting only. We also looked at the words where the noon of tanween written on a hamzah is substituted to alif mad in stopping only. And in these words, as a result of the iwad, i.e. the substitution, we have Madd Badl in stopping only. The student of Tajweed that has studied the rules of mad should be able to distinguish between the situations of Madd Badl as mentioned above. And we also looked at practical examples, taking examples from the Quran to identify the types of mad in them. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
وأن أتلو القرآن فمن اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فقل إنما أنا من المنذرين.